Ladies and gentlemen, in the grand tapestry of existence, we are all, in some way, both the authors and the readers of our lives. Stoic philosophy, with its deep reflections on fate, self-control, and the impermanence of all things, teaches us that life unfolds not by our rigid plans, but by the flow of events we cannot always predict. In this respect, we might say that love, true love, is much like the poem that a person does not realize they are writing. Love, much like fate, is an unpredictable force in our lives. We often try to control or predict how love will unfold, just as we try to control the events that shape our lives. Yet, the Stoic philosophy teaches us that we are not masters of all things. There are aspects of life that are beyond our control, and love, in its truest form, is one of them. We may think we can control our emotions or the people we encounter, but the truth is that love moves through us like a rivulet, comes without warning, and flows in unexpected directions. Fate is often viewed as a guiding hand, one that leads us to experiences and people who will shape our lives in ways we may never fully understand. It does not ask for permission, it simply is. Love operates similarly. We do not choose who we will love or when that love will find us. It arrives in moments we did not anticipate, from places we never expected. Sometimes it is the quiet glance in a crowded room, the unexpected kindness of a stranger, or the slow, steady growth of affection over time. In these moments, we see that love, much like fate, has its own plan, one that we can only accept, not control. The Stoic perspective asks us not to resist the forces of fate and love, but to embrace them with an open heart and a clear mind. It encourages us to acknowledge that while we cannot choose how love arrives, we can choose how we respond to it. This response, however, is not an impulsive reaction driven by unchecked emotions, but a mindful and thoughtful engagement with love, grounded in virtue and wisdom. Just as we accept the unfolding of fate with grace, we must also accept love in its many forms, without clinging to it or running from it, but understanding that love, like life, is fluid and temporary. Stoicism teaches us that we should not allow ourselves to be swept away by the waves of emotion that love can sometimes bring. We should not become so attached to a person or a relationship that we lose sight of our own well-being and inner peace. Instead, we are urged to recognize that love is not the source of our happiness, but rather it is a part of a much larger picture. Our happiness, according to Stoicism, comes from within, from our ability to cultivate inner tranquility and self-mastery. Love, in this sense, is a gift that adds beauty to life, but it is not the only source of meaning. The unpredictability of love, much like the unpredictability of fate, is not something to be feared, but something to be accepted. In doing so, we can free ourselves from the anxiety that often accompanies relationships. The Stoic approach does not call for emotional detachment in the sense of rejecting love altogether, but rather for an understanding that love, while beautiful and transformative, is not an absolute or unchanging truth. It is a part of the ebb and flow of life, just as moments of joy, sorrow, and change are. By accepting the uncertainty of love, we also learn to approach it with patience and humility. We do not demand that love follow our rules or meet our expectations. Instead, we allow love to unfold in its own time and manner, knowing that it will bring both joy and challenge. Through this acceptance, we grow stronger and more resilient as we come to understand that love, like fate, is a journey of both surrender and discovery. The beauty of love, seen through the lens of Stoic philosophy, is not in its permanence or predictability, but in its ability to teach us how to live in harmony with the unpredictable nature of life itself. By accepting love as a force beyond our control, we come to understand that it is not a problem to be solved, but a gift to be cherished. Like fate, love will take us where we need to go, and it will shape us into the people we are meant to become. And in this acceptance, we find peace, not because we understand love in its entirety, but because we have learned to embrace its mysteries without fear or resistance. In the world of Stoic philosophy, emotional mastery is central to leading a peaceful and fulfilling life. The Stoics teach us that while we cannot control the external world, its people, events, or circumstances, we have the power to control how we respond to it. Love, one of the most intense and transformative emotions, is often seen as an experience that sweeps us away, taking us beyond the boundaries of rationality and self-control. However, the Stoic approach to love invites us to consider it not as an overpowering force to be succumbed to, but as something we can engage with mindfully and thoughtfully. When we fall in love, we often experience a surge of emotions that seem to have a life of their own. Our hearts race, our thoughts become consumed by the other person, and we may feel as though we are at the mercy of these powerful feelings. In such moments, it is easy to believe that love is something beyond our control, that it has taken hold of us and dictates our actions and thoughts. The Stoics, however, would challenge this perspective, urging us to recognize that while we may not always have control over the initial spark of love, we do have control over how we respond to it. In Stoic terms, emotional mastery begins with the recognition that our emotions are not inherent parts of who we are, but reactions to our thoughts about external events. This means that our emotional responses are within our control. When we love someone, we are not simply reacting to the person themselves, but to our perception of them and the story we tell ourselves about who they are and what they mean to us. Stoicism teaches us to examine these thoughts, to challenge any irrational beliefs we might have about love, and to align our emotions with wisdom and virtue. This emotional mastery is not about suppressing or denying our feelings. It is about understanding them and responding to them with clarity and purpose. Love, when approached with Stoic wisdom, is not an uncontrollable storm, but a natural experience that we can navigate with calm and intention. When we feel overwhelmed by love, it is a reminder to pause and reflect. What is this love teaching us? How can we engage with it in a way that promotes our growth as individuals, rather than becoming entangled in a cycle of dependency or unrealistic expectations? The Stoic approach to love encourages us to be mindful of the danger of becoming overly attached or dependent on another person for our happiness. In many relationships, we may become so emotionally enmeshed with the other person that we lose sight of our own identity and sense of peace. Love, when viewed through the Stoic lens, is not about finding someone to complete us, but about sharing a meaningful connection that supports our mutual growth. We should not look to the other person to fulfill our emotional needs, but rather we should cultivate our own inner stability and peace. In doing so, we can love from a place of wholeness, rather than out of a sense of lack or longing. One of the most important aspects of emotional mastery in love is the ability to remain grounded, even in moments of intense emotional upheaval. The Stoics teach us to approach all emotions with equanimity, that is, to maintain a sense of balance and composure, no matter what external circumstances may arise. In the context of love, this means not being carried away by fleeting moments of passion or frustration, but instead remaining anchored in our values and principles. It means understanding that emotions, while powerful, are not the ultimate guide for our actions, Our rational mind and virtuous character must lead the way. Furthermore, Stoic emotional mastery encourages us to practice gratitude for love without becoming attached to its outcomes. Love is a gift that enriches our lives, but it is not something we should seek to possess or control. By accepting love as it comes, without demanding permanence or certainty, we free ourselves from the anxiety that often accompanies relationships. We learn to appreciate love for what it is in the present moment, without clinging to it or fearing its eventual loss. In the end, emotional mastery in love is about learning to respond with wisdom rather than reacting impulsively to our feelings. By applying Stoic principles to our relationships, we can experience love in its fullest form, transformative, enriching, and grounded in virtue, without being swept away by the turbulence of unchecked emotions. This mastery is not a denial of our feelings, but a profound understanding of them, guiding us toward a love that is steady, mindful, and deeply fulfilling. The Stoic worldview emphasizes the impermanence of all things. Everything, from the grandest moments to the smallest details of our lives, is temporary. This includes love, relationships, emotions, and the fleeting nature of human existence itself. While this recognition of impermanence can be unsettling to some, the Stoics saw it as an opportunity to cultivate gratitude and mindfulness. By understanding that all things are transient, we learn to cherish the present moment and avoid clinging to what cannot last. In matters of love, this lesson becomes particularly poignant. Love, like all experiences, cannot be held onto indefinitely. It flows, changes, and eventually fades. Yet it is in this impermanence that its true beauty lies. When we enter a relationship or fall in love, it's easy to imagine that the feelings we have will last forever. We envision a future where the bond remains unbroken, where love continues to grow and flourish without end. However, Stoic thought teaches us to approach these moments with awareness that the nature of life itself is change. Relationships, no matter how deep or passionate, evolve over time, and it's important to accept this truth without sorrow or resistance. Love may not last forever, but that doesn't diminish its significance. In fact, it makes it even more precious. Embracing impermanence doesn't mean we are detached or indifferent to love. Rather, it means that we learn to appreciate it for what it is in the present, without the need to control or hold on to it. Stoicism encourages us to enjoy the moments of joy and connection that love offers, but without the anxiety of fearing its loss. If we accept that love is temporary, we free ourselves from the obsessive desire to preserve it at all costs. Instead of clinging to the idea of forever, we can experience love in its truest form, fully present, fully engaged, yet unburdened by the expectation of permanence. When we accept the impermanence of love, we also begin to understand that it is not an event that happens to us, but a dynamic experience that we participate in. Just as no single moment in time can be recaptured, no single interaction or feeling in a relationship can be frozen in place. Love is not something that can be preserved or maintained through force. It is a natural, evolving process that requires our active participation. The beauty of love lies not in its unchanging state, but in its capacity to change, to deepen, to challenge, and to teach us. The Stoic mindset allows us to appreciate each stage of love, understanding that each phase has its own value, its own lessons, and its own rewards. Moreover, understanding the impermanence of love also invites us to let go of the fear of loss. We often become attached to the idea of love lasting forever because we fear the pain of its end. However, the Stoic perspective teaches us that suffering arises not from the loss itself, but from our attachment to the expectation that things will remain unchanged. By accepting that all things, including love, will eventually change or fade, we can move through life with a sense of peace. The fear of losing love dissipates when we learn to let go of the need to possess it. Instead of fearing its eventual end, we can cherish the time we have together, knowing that this too is part of the natural order. The Stoic philosophy of impermanence also extends to how we approach challenges in relationships. Just as life brings seasons of growth and prosperity, it also brings seasons of difficulty and change. Love will encounter obstacles, misunderstandings, and moments of sorrow. But rather than seeing these moments as threats to the relationship, we can view them as integral parts of the journey. Just as the cycle of seasons brings both storms and sunshine, love too experiences its own ebb and flow. Embracing the impermanence of love means understanding that these difficulties are temporary and that they too will pass. By embracing impermanence, we are also invited to live more fully in the present. Instead of spending time worrying about what might happen in the future, we learn to savor the love we have right now. The impermanence of love encourages us to cherish the connection we share today, to express our affection and appreciation without hesitation, and to engage fully in the relationship while it is here. It teaches us that love is not about holding on to a specific moment or expectation, but about being fully present with each other in the moments we are granted. In the end, the Stoic view on the impermanence of love invites us to live with greater acceptance, freedom, and joy. It frees us from the need to control, to cling, and to fear loss. Instead, it teaches us to embrace love as it is, temporary, beautiful, and transformative. By accepting its impermanence, we can find greater peace in both its presence and its eventual departure, knowing that its fleeting nature is what gives it meaning and depth. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies the concept of self-awareness. To live wisely and virtuously, one must first come to understand oneself, the thoughts, desires, emotions, and motivations that shape the way we interact with the world. This principle is vital in all aspects of life, but it becomes particularly significant when we consider love and relationships. In matters of love, self-awareness serves as the foundation upon which we can build healthy, meaningful connections with others. Without a clear understanding of who we are and what we truly seek, we may find ourselves caught in unfulfilling relationships, driven by impulses, unrealistic expectations, or external pressures rather than the pursuit of genuine intimacy. Love, by its nature, can be an intense and complex emotion. It can stir deep desires and ignite powerful passions. Yet, without self-awareness, we might be drawn into relationships not because they align with our values and needs, but because of fleeting desires or societal influences. The Stoic approach encourages us to pause and reflect before acting on those desires, asking ourselves important questions. What do I truly want from this relationship? Is this person bringing out the best in me? Am I engaging in this love with a sense of self-respect? Or am I seeking validation or fulfillment outside myself? These reflections guide us to a deeper understanding of our emotional landscape and prevent us from making decisions based solely on impulse or external expectations. In love, just as in life, we are often faced with the temptation to act based on the emotions of the moment. However, Stoicism teaches us to be vigilant in observing our feelings without letting them dictate our actions. True emotional intelligence comes from the ability to recognize and understand our emotions without becoming enslaved to them. In relationships, this means not being swept away by the intensity of passion or the excitement of infatuation, but instead grounding ourselves in the knowledge of who we are and what we truly seek in love. Self-awareness allows us to engage with love in a mindful and intentional way, rather than as an emotional reaction to a fleeting feeling. Furthermore, self-awareness in love involves recognizing our own vulnerabilities and imperfections. We all bring certain emotional baggage into relationships, past experiences, insecurities, unmet needs, that can shape the way we interact with others. Without acknowledging these aspects of ourselves, we may project unrealistic expectations onto our partners or fall into patterns of behavior that are rooted in fear or unresolved pain. The Stoic approach encourages us to examine these aspects of ourselves with honesty and compassion, not to judge or condemn them, but to understand them as part of our human experience. This understanding empowers us to engage in love with greater authenticity, knowing that we are both flawed and capable of growth. Self-awareness also involves setting healthy boundaries and knowing when to walk away from a relationship that no longer serves us. Love, like all experiences, is a journey of self-discovery. Sometimes we find that we are no longer aligned with a partner or that the relationship is not nurturing our personal growth. In such moments, self-awareness allows us to make difficult decisions with clarity and grace. It reminds us that our value is not defined by our relationships, but by the way we live in accordance with our values and principles. It is through self-awareness that we can preserve our integrity and cultivate relationships that are truly meaningful, rather than remaining in situations that drain us emotionally or spiritually. Moreover, self-awareness in love means recognizing that we are not looking to be completed by another person. The Stoics teach us that we are whole in ourselves. We do not need someone else to validate our worth or provide us with meaning. Love is not about dependency or seeking fulfillment from external sources, but about sharing our lives with another in a way that enhances our personal growth. A relationship grounded in self-awareness is one where both partners come together not to fill an emotional void, but to support each other's journey toward becoming better, wiser, and more virtuous individuals. In essence, self-awareness enables us to love in a healthy, balanced way. It encourages us to reflect on our values, desires, and intentions to ensure that we are entering relationships for the right reasons and in a way that aligns with our true selves. It allows us to recognize the potential for growth and change within ourselves and our partners, and it teaches us to approach love with mindfulness and respect. By practicing self-awareness, we are not only able to love others more deeply and authentically, but also cultivate a love for ourselves that is rooted in wisdom, integrity, and self-respect. This ultimately leads to richer, more fulfilling relationships that are grounded in mutual understanding and personal growth. The Stoic philosophy teaches that our perspective on life shapes our experience of it. How we choose to see the world, the challenges we face, and the relationships we engage in profoundly affects our emotional well-being and our capacity for peace. In the realm of love, this idea becomes especially powerful. Love, by nature, is filled with highs and lows, moments of bliss and moments of frustration. Yet, how we choose to view these fluctuations can determine whether we approach love with anxiety and fear or with acceptance and wisdom. Stoicism encourages us to adopt a broader, more expansive perspective on love, one that transcends the immediate emotional reactions we may feel in any given moment. Love often presents us with intense emotions, and it's easy to get swept up in the whirlwind of passion, longing, or heartbreak. In these moments, we can easily lose sight of the bigger picture, becoming so focused on the present emotions that we forget the long-term implications of our actions and responses. However, Stoicism reminds us that emotions are fleeting. They rise, they fall, and they change with the course of time. In this context, love is not just about the intensity of a moment, but about how we approach that moment with a calm, rational perspective. A Stoic perspective encourages us to zoom out from the immediate emotional storm and consider the broader arc of our lives and relationships. When we experience difficulty in love, whether it be heartbreak, conflict, or uncertainty, it is easy to become consumed by negative thoughts. We may dwell on perceived failures or struggles, interpreting them as signs that love is doomed or that our own worth is somehow diminished. This is where Stoicism offers a powerful tool, the ability to reframe our thinking. By choosing to view challenges in love not as obstacles to our happiness, but as opportunities for growth, we shift our perspective to one that fosters resilience and wisdom. The Stoic approach teaches us that the difficulties we face in love are not punishments or signs of failure, but natural parts of the human experience that allow us to refine our character and develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and others. This shift in perspective also helps us avoid the trap of attachment. In relationships, we often cling to idealized versions of what love should look like, expecting perfection or permanence. When reality does not match our expectations, we can feel disillusioned or heartbroken. However, Stoicism teaches us to accept love as it comes, without attachment to a specific outcome. By adopting a broader perspective, we understand that love is a dynamic, ever-changing force. It is not something to be grasped tightly or controlled, but something to be experienced fully with an awareness of its impermanence. This awareness frees us from the fear of loss and allows us to engage in love with a sense of freedom and peace. The power of perspective also extends to how we view the other person in a relationship. Instead of seeing them as an object of desire or a source of our happiness, Stoicism encourages us to see them as a fellow traveler on the path of life, someone who, like us, is subject to the same uncertainties, challenges, and imperfections. By cultivating empathy and understanding, we can approach love with greater patience and compassion. We learn to see the other person not through the lens of our own expectations, but with a sense of recognition of their humanity. This shift in perspective fosters deeper connections and helps us avoid the disappointment that often comes from projecting unrealistic ideals onto others. Moreover, Stoicism invites us to maintain a sense of detachment from the outcomes of our relationships. While we may deeply care for someone, we recognize that we cannot control how they feel, how they behave, or how the relationship will unfold. By adopting a perspective that embraces uncertainty, we free ourselves from the anxiety that often accompanies the desire to control or predict the future. We can focus on what we can control: our own actions, our own thoughts, and our own responses, without becoming consumed by the fear of what might or might not happen. Finally, the Stoic perspective on love teaches us to embrace the totality of the experience. Love is not just about the moments of joy and passion, but also about the moments of struggle and challenge. By adopting a broader perspective, we see that love is a process, a journey that includes both pleasure and pain, growth and loss. This understanding helps us approach love with a sense of acceptance, rather than trying to force it into a specific mold or expectation. We come to appreciate that each phase of love, whether positive or negative, contributes to our personal growth and understanding of the world. In conclusion, the power of perspective in love lies in our ability to see beyond the immediate emotional reactions and to approach love with wisdom, patience, and acceptance. By embracing the Stoic idea that we cannot control everything in love, but we can control how we respond to it. We are able to experience love more fully and with greater peace. This shift in perspective allows us to engage in love not as a source of stress or anxiety, but as an opportunity for growth, understanding, and connection. The Stoic world places a strong emphasis on accepting the reality of change and the unpredictable nature of life. This acceptance is rooted in the understanding that everything, including love, is subject to the laws of impermanence. In love, as in all aspects of life, the Stoic principle of amor fati, the love of fate, reminds us that we must embrace all experiences, whether they bring us joy or sorrow, without resistance. This approach encourages us to view love not as something we own or control, but as a natural, evolving experience that we are fortunate enough to participate in. Love is not static, and to expect it to remain the same forever is to set ourselves up for disappointment. The Stoic approach teaches us that instead of clinging to an idealized version of love, we should accept it as it is, in all its beauty and impermanence. In relationships, we often find ourselves looking for certainty. We want to know that the person we love will always be there, that the connection will last, and that the emotions we feel will remain unchanged. Yet, the Stoic perspective teaches us that certainty is an illusion. Life, by its very nature, is unpredictable, and this includes the course of love. Just as we cannot control external events or the passage of time, we cannot control the ebb and flow of our emotions or the dynamics of our relationships. Love, in this sense, is something that happens to us as much as it is something we actively choose. We must learn to accept the uncertainty that comes with love and find peace in knowing that while we cannot predict the future, we can still experience love fully in the present moment. The Stoic idea of control also plays a crucial role in how we approach love. While we cannot control the actions or feelings of others, we can control our own thoughts, reactions, and behaviors. This understanding shifts the focus from trying to change or fix the other person to cultivating our own emotional resilience and wisdom. In love, this means that rather than becoming consumed by jealousy, fear, or insecurity, we focus on developing our own inner peace. The Stoics believed that our emotional well-being depends not on external events, but on our own attitudes and responses. Therefore, when we face difficulties in love, whether it is a misunderstanding, a disagreement, or even a loss, we can choose to respond with equanimity, focusing on our own growth and virtue rather than allowing ourselves to be swept away by negative emotions. At the same time, accepting the impermanence of love also involves letting go of attachment. Attachment often arises from the fear of loss, and it is this fear that can make us hold on too tightly to people or experiences. The Stoics taught that attachment is a form of dependence that can lead to suffering because it blinds us to the reality that all things are temporary. When we are attached to someone or something, we become vulnerable to disappointment and heartache when that thing changes or disappears. However, if we can accept the impermanent nature of love and relationships, we free ourselves from the anxiety of loss. This doesn't mean that we love any less deeply or less passionately. Rather, it means that we love with the understanding that love, like all things, is fleeting. By embracing this, we are able to love more freely and with less fear of the inevitable changes that life brings. Furthermore, accepting the impermanence of love encourages us to cherish the present moment. We cannot dwell in the past, longing for the way things once were, nor can we constantly worry about the future, fearing what might happen. Instead, we are called to experience love as it is right now, with an appreciation for the time we have together, the moments of connection, and the lessons we are learning along the way. The Stoic approach to love encourages us to savor these moments without clinging to them, understanding that every interaction is an opportunity to grow and experience life more fully. Ultimately, the impermanence of love does not diminish its value, rather, it enhances it. By accepting love as temporary, we are freed from the burden of expectation and fear, and we can fully embrace its beauty and significance. Love, in its transience, teaches us to be present, to appreciate the moments we have, and to live more authentically. When we let go of the need for permanence, we allow ourselves to experience love in its truest form, pure, free, and transformative. Through this acceptance, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves, of others, and of the fleeting nature of life itself. In doing so, we learn to love not only others, but also the impermanent, ever-changing nature of existence itself. In conclusion, the Stoic philosophy offers profound insights into the nature of love, emphasizing the importance of emotional mastery, self-awareness, perspective, and acceptance. Love, as experienced through the lens of Stoicism, is not a force to be controlled or feared, but an opportunity for growth, wisdom, and personal transformation. It teaches us to approach love with a calm, rational mind, to embrace its impermanence, and to engage with it in a way that aligns with our values and understanding of ourselves. By accepting love's transient nature, we free ourselves from attachment, fear, and unrealistic expectations, allowing us to experience it fully in the present moment. Through Stoic principles, we learn to love with intention, not from a place of dependence, but from a place of inner peace and self-respect. Ultimately, love, when viewed through the Stoic lens, becomes not just an emotion, but a meaningful, transformative journey that leads to deeper wisdom, greater understanding, and a more authentic connection with others. The Stoic approach to love invites us to appreciate its beauty, knowing that even in its fleeting moments, it has the power to enrich our lives in ways that transcend time.